At $0, the world asks if you can pay. At $1 million, it asks if you qualify. At $30 million, it asks who should call you back. And past $100 million, the world stops treating money like a number and starts treating it like infrastructure. This is not a video about which watch rich people buy. That is cosplay with a finance tab open. This is about what actually changes at every wealth level. Because money does not just buy nicer things. It changes how much friction the world applies to you. At low levels, money solves emergencies. At middle levels, it buys breathing room. At higher levels, it buys options. And at extreme levels, it buys access to rooms most people never even know exist. But there is a catch. Every level removes one problem and quietly installs a new one. Because the financial system is very generous that way. It will take your old anxiety, put it in a nicer jacket, and call it portfolio complexity. So today, we are walking through 9 wealth levels. Not as a fantasy ladder. Not as a ranking of human worth, because that would be both wrong and deeply linked in. We are going to look at what changes. What stops being scary? What doors open? And what new trap appears when the old trap finally lets go? Level 1 is negative net worth. This is where debt owns your calendar. You may have income. You may have a job. You may even look normal from the outside, because modern society has become incredibly good at letting people look fine while financially holding a smoke alarm. But if your net worth is negative, the first claim on your future does not belong to you. It belongs to lenders, interest, minimum payments, late fees, and the tiny little emotional hostage note that arrives every month called the statement balance. At this level, the world treats you with friction. Not always because anyone is being evil. Often because the system sees you as risky. You pay more to borrow. You have fewer options when something breaks. You are punished for being short on cash by being charged more cash, which is one of finance's more elegant acts of clown architecture. A car repair is not a car repair. It is a crisis. A medical bill is not a bill. It is a plot twist. A job problem is not career strategy. It is oxygen. The hidden access at this level is almost none. The main access you have is access to urgency. Urgency makes every decision smaller. It makes you take the worse apartment because you need something now. It makes you keep the job that drains you because the bill is due. It makes you accept expensive credit because the alternative is immediate pain. The trap is that debt does not just cost money. It consumes attention. And attention is the resource people forget to include in net worth. Level 2 is $0 to $10,000. This level does not look glamorous. Nobody is making a music video about having an emergency fund. There are no slow-motion shots of a savings account with $8,000 in it. But this is one of the most important levels because it is where emergencies start becoming survivable. The car repair is still annoying. But it is not a personal financial natural disaster. The rent increase is still insulting. But it does not immediately launch you into crisis mode. At this level, the world has not changed much from the outside. The landlord does not roll out a red carpet because you have a buffer. The bank does not whisper, "Ah, a person of reserves." But internally, the world feels different. You get one tiny layer of distance between event and panic. That distance matters. It is the first time money starts buying emotional delay. And emotional delay is underrated. It is the ability to say, "This is bad," instead of, "This is bad and also I must solve it by 4 p.m. using a credit card and a prayer." The door that opens here is basic stability. The trap is mistaking survival for safety. $10,000 can save you from many small emergencies. It cannot save you from a full income interruption, serious healthcare event, prolonged family obligation, or a lifestyle that quietly grows faster than the account. This level is the foundation. It is not the house. Level 3 is $10,000 to $100,000. This is where stability starts to show up in the room and take its shoes off. You are not free yet. But you are not reacting to every single financial event like the universe is personally texting you threats. At this level, you can start making decisions that are not purely defensive. You can move for a better job. You can leave a bad apartment. You can invest consistently. You can take a professional risk that has a rational chance of paying off. You can tell a bad financial offer, "No thank you," which is one of the most expensive sentences in the English language. The world begins treating you differently because you have fewer forced moves. That is the first real unlock. Not status. Not luxury. Fewer forced moves. People underestimate this because it is quiet. It does not photograph well. You cannot post a picture of "I was able to think clearly before signing a lease." Although honestly, some people would, and the caption would be unbearable. The new trap is that one bad month can still matter. The money is enough to feel more adult. But it is often not enough to survive a long disruption without serious damage. If all of it is in retirement accounts, home equity, or assets that are hard to access, the headline number may overstate the actual freedom. This is where the difference between net worth and liquidity starts to matter. A dollar you can use next week and a dollar locked away for decades are not emotionally the same dollar. Both are valuable. But only one can stop the refrigerator from becoming a philosophical problem. Level 4 is $100,000 to $500,000. This is the respectable zone. This is where people start to look financially stable from the outside. Better housing. Better credit. Better job flexibility. Maybe investments are finally large enough that market moves feel like real money. Maybe retirement accounts are no longer decorative. Maybe you can handle a layoff for a while without immediately turning your life into a group project. The door that opens here is credibility. Financial institutions see more proof. Employers may feel less like the only oxygen source. You can plan in years instead of weeks. This is a big deal. But this level has a very sneaky trap. It is the first level where lifestyle inflation starts wearing a respectable outfit. The spending does not feel ridiculous. It feels earned. The apartment is not luxury. It is safe. The car is not excessive. It is reliable. The trips are not indulgent. They are finally living. And sometimes those things are true. The problem is not enjoying life. The problem is when every improvement becomes permanent. Because then your wealth has not bought freedom. It has bought a nicer set of fixed costs. This is why two people with the same net worth can have completely different levels of freedom. One has a portfolio, low fixed costs, and options. The other has a portfolio, a mortgage, 2 car payments, subscriptions that reproduce in the drawer, and a lifestyle that requires the current income to keep breathing. Same number. Different friction. Level 5 is $500,000 to $1 million. This is where optionality begins to feel real. Not yacht optionality. Not accidentally buy a vineyard optionality. Normal human optionality. The ability to take a sabbatical. The ability to change jobs more carefully. The ability to survive a bad year. The ability to invest without every downturn feeling like a personal attack from a red line. At this level, money starts buying time. And time is the cleanest form of access. With time, you can wait for a better job. You can learn a skill. You can negotiate. You can say no. And saying no is where the world really starts treating you differently. Not because people suddenly become nicer, but because you are no longer negotiating from desperation. The new trap is psychological. This is the level where some people start feeling rich before their life is actually durable. $1 million sounds enormous. And it is enormous compared with having nothing. But $1 million in net worth is not the same thing as $1 million in spendable cash. If it is mostly home equity, retirement accounts, or taxable investments meant to support decades of life, then it is powerful, but it is not a permission slip to start acting like a discontinued Roman emperor. This is where the episode needs to be very clear. $1 million can be life-changing. It is also not the same as permanent escape. It is the point where you may have leverage, not immunity. Level 6 is $1 million to $5 million. This is where many people cross into what wealth management firms would call high net worth territory, though exact definitions vary. And this is where hidden access becomes more visible. Banks may offer better relationship treatment. Advisors become more interested. Tax planning starts to matter more. Estate planning stops being a thing only dramatic families in television shows discuss around fireplaces. Lending can become more flexible. Your investment decisions can start affecting your life in a way that feels less theoretical. The world begins to ask a new question. Not just, can you pay? But, how should this be structured? That word matters. Structure. At lower levels, money is about covering needs. At this level, money starts becoming a system. Accounts. Tax buckets. Asset allocation. Insurance. Estate documents. Concentration risk. Liquidity. This is the part of wealth nobody puts in the motivational montage because it mostly looks like paperwork and mild forehead tension. The door that opens is professional attention, not celebrity treatment. But more people are willing to help, advise, lend, or structure because there is now enough money to justify the machinery. The trap is that the machinery can get expensive and confusing. Bad advice gets more costly. Fees become harder to see. Complexity can disguise itself as sophistication. And if someone makes you feel smart by making your life impossible to understand, that is not always finance. Sometimes it is theater with invoices. Level 7 is $5 million to $30 million. This is serious access. You are not just comfortable. You are now in the zone where the financial world may start building doors specifically for people like you. Private banking becomes more relevant. Specialized tax planning becomes more important. Investment access may expand. You may see opportunities that are not marketed to the general public. Real estate financing can become more flexible. Concentrated stock positions, business exits, carried interest, trusts, estate planning, and multi-state tax issues become less like edge cases and more like normal Tuesday problems. The world treats this level differently because there is enough capital to make relationships worth maintaining. At this level, callbacks improve. Not always. Not magically. But capital attracts service. And service reduces friction. This is where the hidden access idea becomes very real. The public sees luxury. The actual unlock is often boring and more powerful. Better financing. Better advice. Better introductions. Better ability to wait. Better ability to buy an asset when someone else is forced to sell. The new trap is dependence. The more complex the money becomes, the more you depend on other people to interpret it. Advisors. Attorneys. Accountants. Bankers. Investment managers. And most of them may be competent and useful. But the core risk remains. If you do not understand the basic shape of your own wealth, you can become a passenger in a very expensive vehicle. Comfortable passengers still crash. They just do it with better upholstery. Level 8 is $30 million to $100 million. This is commonly discussed as ultra-high net worth territory, though again, definitions vary. At this level, wealth becomes institutional. You may need a team. Not because rich people are helpless. Although some do seem to lose the ability to book a normal restaurant reservation. But because the complexity is real. There may be businesses, trusts, tax planning, estate structures, charitable vehicles, private investments, real estate, insurance planning, security concerns, family governance, and privacy decisions. The door that opens is institutional attention. People are no longer just selling you products. They are pitching structures. Family office services. Private deals. Alternative investments. Custom lending. Access to conferences, networks, and rooms where opportunities circulate before the public hears about them. This is the part that most people misunderstand. The wealthy do not only have more money to invest. They may get earlier conversations. They may get more flexible terms. They may get better information flow. They may be able to take risks that would be irresponsible for someone without a cushion. That does not mean every private deal is good. Many are aggressively mid wearing a velvet jacket. But the access itself is different. The trap is that access creates noise. When you are offered more opportunities, you are also offered more ways to make expensive mistakes. At lower levels, the problem is scarcity. At this level, the problem can become filtering. Which deal is real? Which advisor is aligned? Which structure is useful? Which opportunity exists because it is good, and which exists because someone needed a wealthy person to absorb the risk? The game changes. But it does not disappear. Level 9 is $100 million and above. This is where money becomes infrastructure. At this level, wealth is no longer just a portfolio. It can become an operating system. Family offices. Professional staff. Legal teams. Tax teams. Investment committees. Trust structures. Philanthropy. Political access. Business acquisition. Generational planning. Privacy management. Security. Reputation. The world treats this level differently because the money can move things. It can fund companies. It can buy influence. It can support institutions. It can shape neighborhoods, organizations, media, philanthropy, and policy conversations. It can also make ordinary life weird. At this level, people may not respond to you as a person first. They may respond to the money, the family name, the access, the potential donation, the investment check, or the future invitation. That sounds luxurious until you remember that trust is also a form of wealth. And extreme money can make trust harder to price. The trap is insulation. When enough people are paid to reduce friction around you, friction can stop teaching you things. You can become protected from consequences in ways that slowly make your judgment worse. You can also become responsible for problems most people never have to think about. Family governance. Succession. Privacy. Who gets access? Who gets money? Who gets control? How to raise children who understand reality when reality keeps arriving through a side entrance. This is why the top of the ladder is not just more freedom. It is more power, more options, more insulation, and more complexity. So what do we do with all of this? Because most viewers are not watching this while casually reorganizing a family office between meetings. The useful lesson is not become ultra-rich or nothing matters. That is a terrible takeaway and also how people end up buying courses from men who film in rented kitchens. The useful lesson is that wealth changes life in stages. First, money buys emergency protection. Then it buys stability. Then it buys time. Then it buys optionality. Then it buys access. And eventually, it buys infrastructure. But each stage only works if you do not confuse the visible symbol with the real unlock. A nicer car is visible. Lower fixed costs are powerful. A luxury apartment is visible. A year of runway is powerful. A title is visible. The ability to leave a bad room is powerful. Status is visible. Access is quiet. And the quiet part is usually the signal. So if you are building wealth from the lower or middle levels, the goal is not to cosplay the higher levels. The goal is to remove friction in the right order. Pay down expensive debt. Build a real emergency buffer. Keep fixed costs from swallowing every raise. Invest consistently. Build skills and relationships that are not tied to one employer. Understand your liquidity, not just your net worth. Protect your attention. And when your income rises, do not automatically let your lifestyle negotiate on your behalf. Because the world already has enough systems trying to price your weakness. Your job is to build enough strength that you can choose. That is the real wealth ladder. Not poor to rich. Not regular to luxury. Not Honda to helicopter. The ladder is panic. Then stability. Then options. Then access. Then infrastructure. And somewhere along the way, if you are careful, money stops being the thing that makes every decision louder. It becomes the thing that makes better decisions possible. That is the signal.